welcome to the video. For today's guest, we have the wonderful Jane Yank. Jane has been analyzing handwriting for 40 years or so. She has a Ph.D., which was focused on handwriting sciences. She's worked in clinical settings while conducting and teaching research to graduate students. She is our first, and so far only, AHAF Research Chair. Jane was also a licensed psychologist until she recently retired. So welcome to the show, Jane.
Well, thank you, Teresa.
I'm really excited to talk to you about what you have planned coming up for AHAF. But first, I'm really curious to know, obviously research is your thing. Your entire career has been built around research. And I'm wondering, was it always so, or was it something that you decided you really liked after you started doing it?
First took some of my research courses. I was curious. I had been a Nancy Drew reader. I loved Sherlock Holmes, and I wanted to discover things. But it was my professors who were fascinated with research and really lit the candle for me. And I didn't want to let it go once the classes were over. So I kept taking more and more and more. So that's how I got involved in doing different kinds of research, trying different methods, and seeing what it could really tell us and what it doesn't tell us.
Right? That's such a good way to look at it, because sometimes there is no information, which tells you something as well.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that. So it was really once you started doing research, that's where the ball just kind of snowballed for you. That's really cool. So coming up, what you have planned is 12 sessions. And these you are going to be teaching people about the basic procedures of research. And then we're actually going to have a research project that we're working on together.
That's right. So we'll be meeting monthly on the Tuesday night meeting forum. And first we'll just take an overview of what research is, what it can do, what we can do with research, and how to approach it so that we can actually get some answers to questions that are meaningful. We will discuss the ethics of research. We will add not only the kinds of research, the ethics that we use when we're dealing with people, first do no harm, those kinds of things, but also the special ethics that apply to research, like honesty and reporting things accurately and not what we would call overdriving our headlights, saying more than what the research really tells us. We will discuss different methods of conducting research, collecting data, analyzing it, and then how to present it so that people understand what it is we're talking about and how to interpret the findings that we get, even if the findings indicate that we didn't do it properly or that there are no findings to report, which can happen occasionally.
Okay, so that's exciting. So are those kind of factual classes? How many of those are you going to have before we launch into the project itself?
So we'll have 6 of those, and that'll be a foundation for all the research that we do. The people that are in the program that are attending these lessons, then we'll get together and decide on a research question together that we'd like to do. And that could be all sorts of different things. It could go all sorts of different areas. And then we'll work on it together, because research is a collaborative activity. There is no area that I can think of where two heads are better than one applies more clearly than in research. Different perspectives, different ideas, different ways of going about doing things. And so we all learn from each other. We find out what works, what doesn't work. And there's no right way, only way. Those who don't get it don't succeed. It's not that kind of thing. It's a collaborative project, and we work together as a team.
So, someone who has done like pretty much no research, That does sound a little bit intimidating. Would you say like who is this for? Like somebody who has never done anything? Am I going to be able to do it?
Well, this is the thing that I always start telling students that you do research every day. Do you go to the grocery store? Do you compare prices? Do you see if a pair of shoes fits? Do you, or if you like them, are they comfortable? Is the mattress comfortable? Those are all kinds of research that we do without even thinking about it. So we'll be using some of the same methods that you do on a daily basis and finding out how they apply uh, in an academic research approach. So by academic, I mean following the scientific method. So I don't think that it will be as strange as it seems to be. There will be no math or almost no math. The math that I've used in classes before is usually 5th grade or below. We add, we subtract, we multiply, and we might divide. Maybe we'll do a percent. So that kind of thing will be very minimal. The main thing is, and people don't realize this often, is that research is about thinking. It's about planning. Anyone who's ever planned a wedding or a party has done most of the things that we do in research, only they haven't applied it to a scientific question.
Oh, I love that. Well, that makes me feel a lot better because really I just heard there that, okay, I have planned, Christmas dinner for 25 people. So
Right.
in a way, that's a research project too.
It is absolutely a research project unless you have unlimited funds and you know exactly what's going to happen with the 25 people that will attend and what will happen if someone isn't invited. You've been through it all. So yes.
Well, that's very exciting. Thank you for that. So who would you say should attend this? If you're at all interested, we know now that, you know what, everybody can do this, but who should actually attend? Who's this meant for?
In a perfect world, I would say everyone needs to attend, especially in the world we live in today. There are so many pieces of information that are thrown at us, and often we don't know how to evaluate, is this valid? Is this a reliable statement? This course will help you do that. So at the end of the day, you'll be a better handwriting analyst also because there are many claims made by different people on the internet, which you can find easily about what handwriting says about this thing or that handwriting feature or what have you, that don't have any substance. And those are the kinds of things that cause other people to say that we are a bunch of quacks, that we don't know what we're talking about. So we'll find that some of the things that we believed that were, true, that we held to our hearts, maybe aren't as strong as we thought. And some things are maybe more important than we realized. So it will make you a better handwriting analyst. It will make you a better consumer of information and probably a better consumer in the grocery store too.
I like that. That's awesome. And I like what you were saying there because even as we get more familiar with it, whoever takes this is going to start to understand what is valid research. So if they are reading a claim, it's like, what do you look for? Does this make sense? Is this legitimate or not?
We'll take a very close look at some of these and see what the foundation is. What's the basis for saying that this particular feature or this constellation of features means this or that? One of the best examples that I have is the personal pronoun I. There are two competing themes and they're 180 degrees opposite. One says the father is the upper zone and the mother is the middle zone. Others say it's reversed. So that is something that we need to take a close look at. Eventually, I don't know if that'll be of interest to the group when we actually do a project, but there are things like this that we really need to hammer out so that we understand.
For sure. All right, so let's take a little bit closer of a look, because you mentioned, that's 12 different sessions. 6 are going to be focused on the basics, and then 6 will be dedicated towards the project. And in that, you mentioned that we would be taking a look at the research ideas.
Right.
How to come up with one.
I'm sorry.
And how to research ideas and how to come up with one, a valid one.
Yes. So one of the things that I've seen in most students is that they shoot for the moon when they only have enough gas to get around the block. So what we have to do is form a research question that is actually answerable within the resources that we have available, including time. So we don't want to do a project that will, for example, follow first graders until 8th grade, because we want to see something now. We want to see something quickly. So we'll be taking a look at how to create a feasible research project that will give us some meaningful information within a reasonable time frame. So that's one of the first things we'll do. We'll discuss the ethics, as I mentioned before, to show not only how to protect people who are involved in the research, who offer their samples to us, but also how to present information in an honest and straightforward manner. We'll
That's
take a look. Yeah, that's
that'll be handy, right? Because that's are we looking at having the results of this publishable? Is that kind of the ultimate goal, is to get the results of our project published, or at least in a publishable format?
I think so. I think one of the things that I didn't include is how to write a research paper in a publishable format. That is a separate problem altogether. But at least we can have a research project done that if people are really interested in it, then we can go to the steps in writing a publishable a report.
Right.
And that's interesting too, because when I first started, it wasn't unusual to have 8-10 pages in a journal dedicated to one research project. Now they're trying to get it down to 2 pages at the most.
Oh,
And some journals are even asking researchers to pay for the publication. So we may use other formats that would get the information out without causing us too much time and effort.
okay. So that's really good. What I understood that to be is that we may not take that step, that we have to play it by ear. We can't predict the future, so we'll see what happens. But we want to make sure that we're taking all the steps that are going to keep us out of the weeds, where we might make a mistake, where the ethics might be questionable, where the question itself is questionable and would prevent us from actually taking any further steps.
Right. And I've certainly done things where I thought I had a really tight research question, and I found out that what I really had was a program that would take me 10 years to complete. So that's why it may even seem like we're doing trivial kinds of things, but those are the building blocks. Those give us the foundation for the more elaborate approaches to research.
Nice. Okay, that's cool. So, how to formulate a question is something we're covering, the ethics, and then also I think research methods. We're going to touch on that. And what do you mean by research methods?
How to design the research to answer the question. That's another disconnect that I often see, is people get a great idea, they have a question that they want to answer, and then they design their program so that they actually learn something else. So we have to make sure that the research is designed to answer the question, and to do it in a way that's most valid and reproducible, so that someone else in another area, some other researcher, could then do similar research and it would be a similar process. So that's the research design. Research methods, there are many methods of gathering data and then analyzing data to see what, again, would provide the best answer for the research question. We're always looking back at that research question. And then analyzing and deciding who would be most interested in this information, and then writing a report in a format that would be of most interest to that audience.
Right. Okay. So when we're talking research methods and the different ones out there, what you're saying is we want to make sure if we're going shopping for shoes that we actually get shoes and not come back with a hat.
Right.
So we got to match the research method to the question.
Right.
And then that will just allow us to analyze the data better.
That's true. That's true. So one of the things that we also try to avoid is data dumpster diving, which
Oh,
is collecting all sorts of data about all sorts of things and then trying to see if we can make a research question out of it. That's a backwards approach that introduces bias and causes all sorts of problems. So that's something we want to avoid by having that tight research question. And the thing about it that is so useful too is that once you have that question and you start to look at methods of gathering the data, you can see right away if it's not possible to do. So then you can revamp your question to make it feasible.
hmm. Well, that sounds very interesting. So when we move on to the project itself, so it's wide open right now. Like we're gonna figure out a question together. Is that?
This is something that I'd like to get a lot done in a short period of time. 6 months is a blink of an eye when it comes to research. So what we'll do is we'll work together on creating a feasible research question that we're interested in. Because after you've worked with it long enough, sometimes it's like, why did I ever think this was an interesting question? Because there's a lot of steps involved. So we'll do things together and then we can parcel things out so that everyone will get a taste of different steps of the research process, but some people may be more involved in one than in other, so that by the end of the 6 months, we actually are ready to look at what we found and see if it's interesting enough to pursue.
Wow. This is such a huge project, Jane. I am just so impressed that you're willing to take this on and take us all through the journey of learning about research and then actually doing a project together. It's so huge.
Thank you. I'm happy to do it, but remember, it won't be huge if we all work together. Many hands make light work. And
That's so true. Yeah.
there'll be plenty of time between the sessions so that if I suggest, okay, see if you can get 5 people, everyone in the group, to uh, tell us something about the way they learned handwriting. I'm just making this up.
Mhm.
Then, but people can talk. They can get the information. They have some time. They are not pressed. And then when we come back, we can look at what we found out and see, is there something in here that we can pursue?
I love that. And what I heard in there too is a little bit like we're working together, but we're also learning together and sort of a moment of teaching. Everybody's a little bit of a teacher because you're going to be able to say, this is what I did and what I experienced, and we're all going to learn from that.
Right. And everybody's experience is important. That in behavioral research, that's one of the things that's so valuable, is that we aren't saying there is a correct way. What is your experience? What is yours? What is yours? Tell us more. What's the context? And people don't have to worry about being the odd one out. I keep telling people that, well, this is an example, a real example, and we'll talk about it in the session, but as we all know, Flint, Michigan had a terrible problem with water pollution, and the water was contaminated. Well, researchers had looked at the water quality in the area, and Flint was always a little bit off, but they thought, oh, well, we don't need to pay attention to that because it all kind of averages out. Well, someone said, well, let's take a closer look at it. And lo and behold, they found a huge problem. So everyone's input is vital. And unless it's a mistake, which sometimes happens, everyone has something to inform the others about. And we don't just dismiss it and say, well, it all comes out in the wash. Mm-mm. No, no. There's a famous joke about that a statistician, a lawyer, and a doctor went hunting, and when the doctor found the prey and shot at it, it went way left, and then when the lawyer shot at it, it went way right. So they went back to the bar and they said, well, how'd you do? And the statistician said, on average, we were right on every time. So this is what we don't want to do. We want to listen to all the information that we get.
Yeah. Well, first off, it's open to AHAF members. So you do have to be an American Handwriting Analyst Foundation member. You can just be a general member, which is $60, and you can participate in this.
Mm-hmm.
The videos will be hosted so you can watch them after. You don't have to attend live in order to do it, but if you are watching them afterwards and you still want to be a part of the research, then you're going to have to, I guess, email probably, or we'll have some sort of chat going on where people can participate in it as well. So for you, what would you say is the biggest benefit of research? I think I already have a really good idea, but I'm curious to hear you say it.
I think the biggest benefit of research is that it prevents people from being misled.
Yeah.
Just knowing some of the basics makes you skeptical of some things and able to evaluate the evidence. Like I don't know how long, this is 20 years ago probably, where the Wendy's commercial with the three little old ladies who go up and order a hamburger and one of them says, "Where's the beef?" That is a researcher.
Ah.
So we're going to look at the beef and we're going to see how many ounces it is. And is it real beef or is
Oh,
it?
I love it. I love it. Okay. That sounds like fun. As we go to wrap up this, which has been super informative and super exciting, Jane, I'm just thrilled to pieces with this. I would like to know whether or not you have a favorite handwriting indicator, something that you always look to first when you see a handwriting sample.
The very first thing that I look at uh, is probably unconscious. I probably just get an overall impression of the writing and see if it looks like it is integrated, if it's aligned and so on. But what tells me the most is the rhythm.
Mm.
And whether someone is able to maintain a rhythm. Well, we'll get into this a little bit too, but handwriting involves physiology, our breathing, our respiration, our mood, what we're thinking about. All those things affect our handwriting. And I worked in an oncology clinic, and one of the oncologists, who was a Chinese physician, had gone to medical school in China, said that they were always taught to look at the rhythm of the patients when they signed in to the clinic, or if they wrote something on an information sheet. We don't have that publicly anymore. Everything is online, which is really a loss, because when I would have a patient or a client come, I would look at how they signed in, and it would tell me so much about how those systems were working for them, if they were at odds, if they were irregular, because for one thing, I think we've all been taught, especially women, to be polite, to be very discreet, to not complain. And so patients routinely would answer a doctor with the doctor said, "How are you doing?" "Oh, I'm doing pretty well." And maybe not doing pretty well at all, but maybe not even being aware that they're not doing pretty well, or thinking, "Oh, it's a temporary thing. I don't need to report this. I don't want to be a complainer." That is such vital information, and I am so sorry that because of HIPAA, we don't see what people are actually writing before we get to see them. And I mean, I've had people who said to me once, were you living in my closet for a week before I came in?"
Oh my goodness.
Because you could tell what was going on. Like, how are you sleeping? It doesn't seem like your thoughts are very clear. What's going on with that? And then the story comes out.
Yeah.
So
And you know what you just touched on there, I think is what I love about handwriting analysis the most, is because sometimes it doesn't give us all of the answers. We can't say for certain we know what's happening,
right,
but it can give you insight into what question to ask.
exactly.
And that's where the power comes in, is because now it's you're curious about that person and you're bringing up a topic that maybe they never would have thought of or they wouldn't have felt comfortable explaining or talking about, but you're bringing it up and making it safe for them. And
Right.
that's, that fundamental human need to be understood and to be seen. And that's the power that you have through handwriting analysis. So,
You've said that so well. This is absolutely true.
yeah, I love that. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jane, for joining me today. August 30th is when this begins, our year-long dive into research and our own project. And all anybody else has to do is simply show up or watch the recordings, and Jane is going to walk us through this process. So if you have any questions or you want to participate in this, because we need people to help us with the research project, where should they send their questions or their volunteeringism? I'm not sure. How do I phrase that, Jane?
Where they should sign up to be involved in the program,
Yes.
which is free.
There you go. What she said. Where can you send the email to sign up or ask a question, which is going to be all for free? What's the
Yes.
address?
Jane.yank@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jane. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today.
It's been a delight, Teresa.